Let me tell you one story about something I learned. Let me tell you one story about something I learned. Yo.
Gonna hit you hard with the fast and the fury. Make your mouth drop like Jordan and Julie. Stepping on the court, dog, arm dangerous. Getting the score like Bobby De Niro. Don't approach us like no Gondoliero. Leave you looking like Eddie Norton. Straw in your word like Marvin Martian. Wanna know why? The God sent we. Cause your belly full and your mind empty. All sound alike on BET. How many naked girls do you see? Like Miss Awalad, me can't believe me eyes. Won't stop rocking till the boat capsize. In the holy water, washing off your disguise. Always go back to your dirty big style. Damn big, you left them hypnotized.
Soldiers dance in the middle of the night, smoking trees and chilling with wife. Fridge got food and the kitchen tight. I got a big dog and he walks at night. Soldiers dance in the middle of the night, smoking trees and chilling with wife. Fridge got food and the kitchen tight. I got a big dog and he walks at night.
Walk on line like a high wire act. Speaking my mind on the way.
How's everybody doing? You're listening to the B4evaKool podcast. My name is Rex45. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to jump right into it. Not a lot to talk about today. There's always a lot to talk about, but I think certain things are good in small bites. So as we've been talking now, this is our, I believe it's going to be our 4th episode, and it's coming close to off season. So it's time to start, I talked about you getting your bike prepped and all that fun stuff. I ain't talk about your funds because I can't help with that. But we talked about that and looking at a new race bike or new to you race bike. So we spoke about those things in the last couple of episodes. And today's fitness. And for everyone, it's a little bit different. I think depending on your age, I'm no expertise. I'm no trainer by any stretch of the imaginations. But, everybody got access to I shouldn't say everybody, but most people have access to the internet. So there's a lot of things that you can just do your own research on if you don't already have a trainer. But if you've been racing for a little while, you're already thinking about training. You're already thinking about eating healthy. You're already thinking about building back up your muscle mass so you can get through the season and stuff like that. If you're a first season rider, and you've only gotten in a couple of rounds, and, not that much. If you're still on the fence, you may not be thinking about your shape yet. I think once you decide if you're going to stick it out, I think you're going to say, okay, let me look at my shape. Let me look at being in shape to make sure I can, I can ride the bike for the, the length of the duration of a race. Because for me, in 2014, it was my second year in, and I took a class, shout out to Penguin Racing School. I took a class at Penguin Racing School, and my issue was I wasn't strong enough, so, I couldn't, eventually I just got fatigued. And, I asked the question, what can you do when you're tired? What, thinking, maybe you might say, hey, do this, do that, but it's really like work out. That's it. There's no answer to fatigue. You have to work out. So, depending on what kind of bike you're on, whether it's a, 400cc bike or whether it's a, middleweight bike or a super bike or, for different, the faster the bike is, the more shape you have to be in. I should say faster and more powerful, right? The more shape you have to be in, right? So definitely the off season is a good time to build that up. And because it's harder during this when the season start, because unless you're the type of person that only race and that's all you do, okay, sure. But for most people, they got day jobs and stuff like that, so it makes it harder. But I find that if you work out to a certain level, I would probably say for me, act like you're training for a marathon. Because then when the season start, you're still, by the end of the season, you're still going to start to get fatigued because you're not going to be able to work out as much as you can when you're not racing and when you're not traveling and such. So the off season is a good time just to really just beef up yourself, get in the shape you want to be in. So that way, when the season start, the first couple of rounds, you're in really good shape. So that's going to make you feel better. It's going to give you more confidence that you can actually now break and not worry about your arms collapsing or whatever the case may be, or thinking about if you want to do like one of the GTOs or GTU races or something like that, right? you can do that. Or if you want to do an 8 lap or whatever it is, it's when you know that your body's not going to fail you on the bike. It's easier to go racing. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to be tired. You're not going to be winded. You're just gonna keep jumping on the bike and keep jumping on the bike, and that's going to just really improve things a lot. So definitely, if you're a new rider, look at different ways to work out. Most folks that race is cycling, running. Because it's mostly lower body, abs and lower body. Your arms need to be in some shape. But if you look at the top MotoGP riders, none of them, I mean, maybe Andre Inone, who's coming back, he was probably the most jacked rider in MotoGP. So you don't have to be jacked to go ride a bike fast, but you do have to have endurance. You have to have your legs underneath you, because a lot of it is your legs and your abs. So if you got it underneath you and your abs can hold you up, and your legs can hold you up, you're gonna find riding is a lot easier. So a lot of cycling for everybody, but for the old timers, or the people up there, is obviously it's better to be cycling than running. But either way, it is about getting your endurance up. So definitely plan that in your off season and get that going, because that's the biggest part of this whole thing. Is like once you're in shape, a lot of things become easier. Now it's just a matter of learning your riding style, or figuring out your riding style, or how you want to ride and stuff like that, and then just trying to get out there and just worry about seat time. You don't have to worry about being fatigued. So off season, yoga is a good thing. Like I said, I cycle a lot, so I get a lot of cycling. I do sit-ups like almost every day. I tend to do push-ups at these point. I don't really lift weights. I curl with weights and stuff like that, and do some shoulder exercise with weights. But for the most part, it's more just endurance, and it's mostly legs, squats, and stuff like that, lateral squats, all that things, and just make sure that think about it. When you're on the bike and your body's hurting, think about all the muscles that are hurting, and look at exercises to strengthen those muscles. You know what I mean? But that's kind of it in a nutshell. Obviously, if you're on a smaller bike, you don't have to work out as hard. I know there's riders out there that are bigger riders and stuff like that, and you find time to relax on the bike when you can and stuff like that. So being in shape is great, but obviously there's definitely times on certain tracks that you can rest in certain point and relax as much. Well, you should be relaxed as much as possible, right? Because that's the biggest fatigue is when you're just tense all the time. So being relaxed is the key, but also finding where you can rest on the track and where you have to use your body. So, but you need to be in some shape. And I think most riders are in shape because their muscles give out on them, and then they won't be riding. So, that's that. Let's get into what's going on in MotoGP, because the round's coming up. They're in India at the end of this week, which I'm looking forward to. But the big news is Frankie Morbidelli got signed to Pramac Racing, and I'm excited for that. We talked about that, where he would go. I kind of figured he was going to end up on a Ducati, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be Gresini or Pramac at this point, because the factory seats are already taken, and also VR46. So that's huge for Frankie, because I do think from what I've seen him, when he won the world title for Moto2, and his riding style, and and then even when he was on Honda and started winning and stuff like that on the 2019, I still have to assume he's one of the best riders in the academy. I feel that way, even though it doesn't seem like that because of where he is, because of the knee injury, and then riding on the Yamaha, which outside of Fabio, who now obviously is also struggling, they were struggling early on that bike. So I do feel he is the best rider at the point at this point in the VR46 Academy. But his road was just different than Pecco, right? And you see like Bez, who's doing really well on the VR46, and shout out to Bez for that, right? Because I think it was helpful for him. It was. Pramac was his to lose. I think, and Rossi, you spoke to him about it. I have no idea what they talked about, but he probably kind of said, hey, yo, I owe you one, or something like that, or we even, or something like that, right? Because at the end of the day, Morbidelli's coming from a factory team, right? And so not to say VR46 Academy is not a top tier team, but they're kind of like, them and they're below Grassini because they just, they're like 3 years in, right? So you have to really look at it that way. That them and Grassini are probably about the same. You know what I'm saying? But they're kind of there. So for Bez and the way Bez has been riding this year, he probably should have got that Pramac seat. So he definitely had to give that up for Morbidelli, and which is huge. You know what I'm saying? Because I think if they weren't part of an academy, no rider is going to do that. I don't believe. Everybody wants the seat, and that's what it is, right? You're fighting for your seat, and you're going to hold on to your seat as long as you can. So, seeing Frankie Morbidelli getting signed to Pramac is great. Looking at what Mark Marquez, we'll find out what's going to happen with him. But looking at what Alex Marquez has done since moving to Ducati, I suspect Morbidelli is going to have the same kind of year. But I think the feedback he's going to get from Pecco and from Bez, I think he's gonna speed up. And I assume he's still under contract with Yamaha, so he can't test ride a VR a V4S or VR4 or the R version of the Panigale V4. I can't talk today. I don't know why, but you know what I mean. So I think once he gets up to speed, so I'm looking forward to next year and seeing what he does on that bike, and I'm happy that he at least get 1 year. And listen, I feel bad for. I think Gian Antonio is going to lose his seat, which is the downside. You know what I mean? Because it's so. I don't want to say cutthroat, but if you're not like an elite rider, if you're not really shining right away in MotoGP, like your first year. Look at Fernandez. He hasn't re-signed yet with Gas, right? I mean, I feel bad because Pedro needs to go somewhere, but he hasn't re-signed. Gian Antonio is only a couple of years in. You look at Ika Lukaona, who to me I felt he didn't get a good like that was cold. You look at when Lowe's when he came in. You look at when Redden came in. And so it's one of those things where like you don't know where it's gonna go. So that MotoGP ride is crazy. So who knows to where Mark Marquez is gonna go for next year. But there's only a couple of seats left. There's only two. There's a KTM and there's a Ducati seat. So and Pedro at the moment because Vietti and Anchu are on Akiawa for next year, so he has to go somewhere. So he's either going on a Ducati or he's going on a KTM, and KTM ain't trying to give him up. So I feel like he's going to be on gas. Pedro, that is. So it'll be interesting to see if Marc Marquez elect to jump from Honda in 2024 or ride it out. There's a side of me that says, he should ride it out, right? To be the team player because Honda took care of him when he was riding high. So I there is a side of me that says like that loyalty thing, and I don't. It seems to me, I have no access to MotoGP like that, but it seems to be Marquez got treated better than Rossi got treated because Rossi left and went to Yamaha, even though he won titles with them. You know what I mean? So and so, I think that there's something there that Marquez might have to take an L for 2024. You know what I mean? And just ride out the contract and then see what happens after that. A lot of dudes are on 1 year contracts, so there's going to be a lot of teams up for grabs. So next year is going to be very cutthroat in that sense that there's still going to be a lot of riders, fighting for their seat. Even though Ania Bastianini has been hurt, like his seat's up for grab after 2024. So you never know what's going to happen. This is a quick recap. This is the B4evaKool podcast. My name is Rex45. Comment, tell me what you think. You disagree, you agree. Let's find out. Peace.